Thanks a lot. Thank you all for coming today. So I'm a radiation oncologist, and if you don't know what we do, we'll be exploring that in a little bit. But essentially, I just wanted to give you a background on PENN in terms of particularly the research that we're doing there. And as you can see from the slide, we're a significant recipient of NIH and NCI funding. Number 8, I think this was 2020 for general funding, and then for training grants, we were number 1 in the country. A non-cancer area of research were a few of our researchers who developed the technology for the COVID vaccine, which many of you have been the recipients of, and I imagine they will go on to earn the Nobel Prize for this work, so that's exciting. Likewise, Dr. Carl June is really one of the pioneers of immunotherapy in our country and in the world. This is a picture of Emily Whitehead, who a number of years ago, 10 years ago, received CAR T-cell immunotherapy, and as a result, she is alive and well today because of this groundbreaking work, which is really, as you see just in the daily news, a significant treatment modality in the treatment of particularly resistant and difficult cancers to treat. In my own department, these are 2 physicians, 1 PhD researcher, who are working to develop a new technology for radiation therapy. And radiation therapy, just to give you a little bit of context, about 50% of all cancer patients at some point in their cancer journey are going to receive radiation therapy. The other main modalities are typically what we call chemotherapy, but now we're talking about immunotherapy, biologic therapies, which we call systemic therapies, and then also surgery. When we treat patients with radiation, they can either be treated for palliation of symptoms, or where we're not trying to, or we don't believe that this is curative, to using very aggressive treatment where there's curative intent. And so the treatments can last on the palliative end. You can do it in a single day. When we're going for a cure, some of my patients get treated upwards of 8 weeks. So we're developing this new therapy with a few main academic centers in the world and some industry partners to develop this new technique called flash radiation. And what it really is something out of science fiction. What it appears, and animal studies have already taken place, we could administer that 8-week course of radiation in less than a second, and that's it. And right now there don't appear to be virtually any side effects that we see from standard radiation. So it's truly remarkable, and will really kind of change the face of cancer care in the future. So what I do for a living there is I mostly treat lung cancer and sarcoma, which is cancer of the muscle and the bones. But my real passion is integrative oncology, or the other parts of addressing the patient's needs besides the chemo, the radiation, and the surgery. This slide was taken from Cancer Support Community, which is the largest patient advocacy group in the country. Work closely with Biden Foundation on the Moonshot Project and other projects. And this slide's a couple years old, but the concerns remain. And what you can see here is patients telling the investigators what's on their mind and what bothers them in their daily quality of life with living with cancer. And as you can see, fatigue, anxiety, their physical function, depression, social issues, sleep, and pain are all major players in what's on their mind. So with that, well, knowing that empirically, I kind of helped develop this quality of life program in our department to address these other needs, the more holistic needs of the patient. And you can see there the things that we're addressing, and we did develop art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy, yoga, Reiki therapy, exercise therapy, and acupuncture. The thing that I've used personally on a daily basis with my patients is employing the use of mindfulness meditation to help people with their stress and anxiety. I was just wondering, can I see a show of hands of anyone that's done mindfulness meditation? Terrific. Good. That's what I was hoping for. So you can imagine to teach people this technique, and if you don't know mindfulness, not just the word, but the idea of mindfulness meditation, it kind of has two components from the way that I see it. There's a cognitive component that really teaches people that, we all have thoughts, disturbing thoughts, things that cause us anxiety and so forth. And what mindfulness teaches us is to observe those thoughts, not to deny them, but try to let them go and not latch on to them. And then there's another component, and that's the physical part, where we were doing the body scan and we're focusing and we're breathing. And there's good actual animal studies and even empiric clinical studies that show that breathing, basically what it does is it quiets our sympathetic system, our fight or flight, and it activates or increases the parasympathetic or the vagal tone, and it chills us out, right? So just that act of breathing, and then you couple that with being able to clear your mind, it's a very powerful technique for reducing stress and anxiety. But as you can imagine, some people just can't hang with it, to no fault of their own. It's very difficult in an acute situation to try to teach people these concepts. It's very akin to, I treat lung cancer. I don't tell patients to stop smoking in the middle of treatment. It's almost inhumane in a way. We talk about it, and if they want to, I help them with cessation, but you can imagine it's a real crutch for some people that they need at that moment. So I don't really say you must do mindfulness, but it always kind of upset me that I felt that it was so powerful, but some people really couldn't absorb it. And so what happened was that I always had in the back of my mind that there must be some way to present this information or these techniques in a different way that people can access. And that's about 5 years ago or so. I was going to an open house for virtual reality for the first time. And I didn't know anything about it. And I was, if you've ever been to Philadelphia, I was downtown at the main campus. And I had to go across town during rush hour in the winter, in the snow, across town to buy the art museum and then find a parking spot. So then it goes up even higher, the anxiety. Anyway, I was running late. I got there. I was sweating. I was anxious. The guy put the headset on me. And all of a sudden, I was in the South Pacific on a 18th century tall ship. And I could see the clouds and the blue sky and the palm trees and the sand. And the guy whispered in my ear, make sure to look up behind you, it's 360. And I could see the sun, and then I felt the heat of the sun on my cheek. And I was sure he was playing a trick on me, and I whipped the headset off, and he was laughing. Anyway, I was driving home, and I said, boy, that was something else that my brain truly believed I was there. And then I had the idea that, if we can take someone and put them in this immersive experience, this novel, wonderful scene, I don't have to teach them to slow their breathing down. They're going to naturally slow their breathing down, right? And they're naturally not going to be worried about the future for at least for a minute or two and worried about the past. And that was kind of how I had that aha moment about what virtual reality could offer for patients, and as you'll see, for our trainees and caregivers as well. So we did get together with that same group that had the open house. It worked, and we hired them to make an 8-minute piece of the virtual environment of sitting on the dock of the bay under the stars, and we had a narrator point out the different parts of the scene and to listen to certain things. And I wanted to just basically try to instill that muscle memory of what it feels like to be relaxed. And pretty modest goal, but it turned out to be a huge hit. We put it in our waiting room, which is one of the busiest waiting rooms anywhere. We have upwards of over 200 patients a day, and they usually come with family members, so it's like a train station through there. And you can read the quotes, but people loved it, and we got pretty good press out of it. And most importantly, I got a little bit longer leash from my chairman to go spend some more of his money and to do this. So radiation therapy, there are different flavors of radiation, and this is one of our most specialized forms of radiation. If you've never heard of it, it's called proton radiation. There's about 20 centers, maybe a little bit more in the US now. Most of them are not the size of ours. Most of them are single rooms. Ours are 5 rooms plus 5 other rooms of kind of standard conventional radiation. And I had the notion of, well, it's a scary, you could see the scale with the therapist. She's standing there, and the scale of the room's enormous, and they turn out the lights and the machines make noise. What about if we can kind of chill people out by putting a headset on them and let them go to Machu Picchu or breathe and go to the beach, whatever. And I had to talk to my physicist, and we determined that from a technical standpoint, there wasn't a problem with having a headset on and the scatter of radiation. And so I paired with one of the startups that are here today, Rocket VR Health, and we're currently developing this IRB protocol to put the headsets on the patients while they're getting their radiation treatments. And again, we're going to use a mindfulness practitioner to help narrate the scene. We're not going to use this scene, but this is one of their other scenes that I believe this is from their work that they're doing with Mass General in their bone marrow transplant unit. But they've been wonderful partners to work with, and it's really been a wonderful collaboration. Likewise, we've submitted, or in the process of submitting to an NIH grant. Before COVID, we had great alumni groups or great meetings where people would come in even once they finished their treatment course, and they would meet together. It was a social thing. It wasn't a support group, but it really served as a very powerful source of support for people. And now with COVID, everyone's gone, those rooms are empty. And our patients, they're doing Zoom, but anyone here, like I had that aha moment with the metaverse when I gave a virtual talk where it's supposed to be in Germany, and then I was in the metaverse schmoozing with people before the meeting. I saw how powerful it was. So we're on an NIH grant, and we're going to look at that with prostate cancer patients so that they can have a community, and we'll look at the results of that, which is pretty exciting. The other topic that we're, eagerly interested in addressing is physician and therapist and nurse burnout. So at Penn, we've just opened our new $1.5 billion hospital, and they don't know too much about VR, but they kind of have been peeking at what we're doing in our department, and they've asked us to kind of help guide them. And so we're working with a couple companies about kind of getting some pods, not that one, I'd like that one, but it's not as cool as that one. And then, the headsets, and again, send you off into the South Pacific or wherever you want to go. And the interesting thing is that the health system is taking it so seriously. And they're taking it seriously because people are dropping like flies in terms of people working there. So they don't have a choice but to take it seriously now. The other thing that I'm involved in is I actually teach an anatomy course for medical physics students, which are PhD master's students who are going to be going into standard radiology, which is needed to run those machines, and also radiation oncology. But really, most of them haven't had any biology at all since high school, if they took it. And so, the old way of teaching with the Netter Atlas in a book, it's very difficult. What we're trying to teach is 3-dimensional thinking, just like the surgeons. That's what the radiation is. That's what it requires. And so really, to get over that learning curve, it makes sense to do something in an immersive environment, whether it's VR or AR, but that's what we're developing. And specifically with what I do for a living, it requires a lot of imaging modalities, so CAT scan, MRI, those sorts of things, and I'd like to synthesize them along with the gross anatomy that you see in the right side, right lower corner. And we're working with a company right now to bring that into the anatomy class. Okay. The other very significant area that I'm working on is patient education. These images, these 3D reconstructions are based on our equipment, where you can see that I've contoured from the CAT scan the lung cancer and so forth, and then we can recreate the cancer as well as the healthy structures. And clearly, what I think is, the patients get frustrated. We get frustrated, even though we try to put it into plain English. It's impossible for people to comprehend, exactly what we're talking about without a medical degree. So it really makes sense to try to use some sort of visual education in this process. So I'm still not sure, honestly, whether it requires an immersive environment or just kind of 3D, from a monitor reconstruction. This is a picture from UCSF with a pediatrics patient and her family, and the surgeon is discussing the surgery upcoming for her brain tumor. Again, getting back to the proton radiation, like I said, there are very few centers in the world. We actually are arguably, or not arguably, the world's leader in educating other physicians and other clinicians and other hospital systems about starting up proton centers around the world, of which I'm the medical director, and have had the good fortune to go to Russia and England and other places to help them set up their proton centers. Typically what we do is we bring them to Penn to spend a couple weeks with us to learn on our actual equipment. The problem is we're so darn busy, we can only get those people in the room in between patients, and that time is quite valuable, as you can imagine. So we engaged another third party to help us, and on the bottom we used the CAD information from the manufacturer and basically reconstructed the vault that you see in the picture above to use for training. And the next step of that is I'm very interested in, so once they go back to Russia or UK or Saudi Arabia, wherever they are, I would like to have our continuing education so that we can drive the machine in Philadelphia and they can drive it wherever they are in the world, and we can continue that education process. And then finally, the other thing that I'm trying to set up is a center of excellence, what I'm calling the Digital Innovation Lab, to kind of address all these different activities in a more cohesive manner. And really, you can see the center of the picture is that it's reliant upon collaborations, not even so much with other academic institutions, but with industry. Right now we're relying on philanthropy or a little bit of money from the university, and right now that's not going to foot the bill for the kind of things that we would like to do. So, I want to engage industry and the people that are interested in getting into VR healthcare, is to let them be a part of the process. Let them come with our incubator, and let's kind of put the product through its paces. Let's get you some information, and work on the next iteration, rather than kind of the old story where someone thinks that they have a healthcare product and they drop it in our laps and say, here, take it or leave it. Let's build it from the ground up, and let's make a process that's sustainable, so that we can achieve great things in XR healthcare. And like it says at the bottom, everything that we're doing is going to be done with peer review research, so that we can go back to the health administrators and go back to the insurance companies and say, well, it's not just that someone say, hey, it was fun on the beach, but really show some metrics to show that there was improvement, less emergency room visits, less opioid overdoses, a decrease in pain, increase in quality of life. So that's really a requirement for what we're doing at Penn, is that it really has to be done in a peer review fashion. So with that, I thank you guys for listening, and I will take any questions.
I'm up the front. First of all, as a fellow Quaker, thank you for coming out to the West Coast and doing your wonderful presentation.
Sure.
So I have a question. You're in a playground of companies that do this for a living. I would encourage you to spend a lot of time on the floor if you haven't already. But my question is, where does Penn want to take this whole virtual world and reality? Are you a mainliner in that, you're doing what a lot of different professors are doing and medical professors, or are you an outlier in that, they're kind of thinking you're a bit lost it as you get older in life, or where's Penn at for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I showed you the activities that I'm interested in, and really those are meaningful activities to me. I will speak for Penn because it's kind of, like I said, I'm trying to, at least at this part, which brings up another problem of a big academic institution like ours. I have no idea what's going down 2 doors from me. And so we just began, we sent out we started to find people in different little offices and labs, and we put together our first kind of cooperative group for just the healthcare, not for the whole university. And the upshot of that, the main thing that I realized that needed attention paid to it is getting the legal department and the IT department and any expertise with XR in general on board, because I can have all the grand ideas I want, and I have a lot of them. But if I go through all that work and I say it's not going to happen, then it's a big waste. But anyway, I think I showed you the things that are meaningful to me, and to break it down into big silos, it's both the patient experience, the patient education, therapeutically, what can we do with this, with stress and anxiety? That was my first foray, but it can go into pain and sleep and depression and a lot of other things. And then obviously, the caregivers is a huge part of it. And I break down caregivers into professional caregivers and then the patient caregivers, right? The family members. I see them every day. And in many ways, it's even harder, to be the family member or the friend. It's like, it's akin to like you're in the front seat of the car, but you don't get to drive, So I think more attention has to be paid to those folks. And then obviously the huge one to follow up on, Roger's talk a couple talks ago are the trainees, right? The medical trainees, that's the future of everything. So, and it's just clear that textbooks don't cut it anymore. And so really, I would say they're humble goals as far as what I laid out. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.